John KRAMER, Jigsaw, time-traveling vampiric industrial raccoon. When last we saw John, he was either dead, undead, a flashback, or something in between. But now he's back and corporeal enough to once again answer the question, how are you paying for all of this? Hello, and welcome to Foot the Bill, where we audit your favorite media. My name is Trey, and today we're looking at Saw X, Socks for shorts, 2023's entry to the Saw franchise, and a grand return to form for the series so far. A grand return means expenses, and boy howdy is John flaunting the cash. Saw X finds John experimenting with alternative medicine. Side effects may include numbness in extremities, headaches, or sudden rash. But before we can dive into John's exotic experimental treatment, we have to discuss the rules.
You might want to tell the kids the rules before we start.
No utilities get charged for. All prices are calculated in the year depicted. Saw X sits squarely between the first and second Saw films, so expect prices to be estimated around 2004 to 2005. Finally, I'll permit location-specific scavenging of parts, materials, machines, you name it. This time, John's got a recently abandoned chemical manufacturing plant, as well as a pop-up surgical theater, so you know it's gonna be good. Can Jigsaw assemble an ensemble of horrors with a shoestring budget? Or does his expense taste blow the socks off Grandpa Death puzzles? Let's find out. The movie begins with a cancer screening. This man has tested positive for socks. I swear that will not be the last time I make that joke. The Chad on the slab is none other than John KRAMER, cancer patient. Big bummer that. John's new doc tries to give him the bright side treatment, but KRAMER refuses.
So your advice to me is to die easy?
Have you met this maniac? Nothing about him is easy, not unless you follow the rules. The Angel of Saws stalks the hospital to vent his frustration, coming upon a roguish staff member picking his new subclass. Thief! In a flash, we're whisked away to a hospital basement where our little rogue is strapped in tight. Now that's what I call a Saw Trap, Volume 10.
I'd like to play a game. Perhaps one that addresses those sticky fingers of yours.
If this movie is called Socks, then it's only fitting we call this trap Glasses. The game is simple. The rogue's right hand is strapped into a complex finger-breaking mechanism inspired by his victim patient's own system. Beneath the rogue's left hand is a dial linked up to a heavily modified vacuum, again borrowed from the hospital. On his face is a mask of some sort. I couldn't find an exact copy of it. I looked at vintage eye examination mechanisms, I looked at old German gas masks that you would use binoculars with, old firefighting masks. It's a tough call. If you know what this is, let me know in the comments below, because I'm dying to find out. Is it for diving? Is it for mountain climbing? I don't know. But it has two tubes, one for each eye, running up to the ceiling and back down to the vacuum. And I believe the machine operates thusly. The patient's watch has been turned into a timer, wired into the vacuum. Our rogue has to turn that dial, one number at a time, and break or dislocate each of his fingers in sequence before the time runs out. Failure to do so increases the suction pull from the vacuum until his peepers get popped. I think all or most of this looks like it can be scavenged from the hospital, especially considering we're in some sort of maintenance supply closet. Potentially, the hardware tugging on the rogue's fingers might have required some purchases. The dial clearly activates 5 different motors in sequence, which operate to retract the steel cable to a certain distance before shutting off. Those fittings could be harvested from the room, but I'm not as sure about the steel cable. There's also a light installed in the vacuum that does not come standard, as far as I can tell, but again, that could be harvested from a flashlight and wired in without drawing too much extra power. All in all, I think I can safely charge the hand mechanism, since that's the most bespoke part of this whole debacle. With his hands bound and eyes on the prize, how does our rogue fare? Poorly. Aw, another dream sequence? Come on, man. No charge. Lame. Editor, reset the bill. After attending a group therapy meeting for people told to die quietly, John sits down to write some Lawrence Adam fanfiction when he reunites with one of the group members. And hey, he's looking good. Henry, that's Henry, reveals his cancer cure secret: tapeworms. No, I'm kidding. It's a very obscure and esoteric treatment that big cancer doesn't want you to know about.
The medication isn't approved by the FDA. Hell, it isn't approved by anybody.
Doctors hate this one trick. Later that night, John does some Googling and some emailing, eventually finding out that Dr. Peterson's daughter Cecilia is running the show now. Cecilia, that's Cecilia, calls John and gives him the lowdown. Turns out a spot has opened up and he's a perfect fit. He just has to fly to Mexico for his appointment Friday the 5th. Fun fact, since we know Saw X takes place between Saw 1 and Saw 2, and we know that Saw 1 takes place in 2004, that means that there are only two possible dates John is in Mexico: March 5th or November 5th, as these are the only 5ths that occur on a Friday. If the events took place in 2005, the only possible date is August 5th. It's pretty cool, huh? Also neat is that during the promo season for Saw X, you could actually email John and get a response saying that he was away for work. It's the little details like that that I love in marketing. To be honest, the marketing for Saw X was fantastic all over. I still want that Mayan calendar poster. Someone get me that Mayan calendar poster. And we were robbed of Billy's AMC trailer, but the internet does not forget. A quick traversal later and John is whisked away by the hardest working tour guide cab driver in Mexico. Diego, that's Diego, shows John the sights, including the altar where human sacrifices happened. Cool. Diego eventually drops John off at a cartel kidnapping. Thankfully, this cartel is in the pocket of alternative medicine. A very meek Gabriella, that's Gabriella, invites John in. This is her family's home. And Cecilia has been a great healer in these parts, even going so far as to have saved Gabriella's life. We get a brief homage to Saw 1 as John spies Cecilia approaching. I love how this movie rhymes with the franchise. Cecilia explains that drug companies have even bigger vans with even more armed men, and takes John on a tour of the abandoned chemical factory that will serve as surgical theater for his duration. Damn, this room's got some swank. Let's meet the crew. Mateo, that's Mateo, is apparently an anesthesiologist. Valentina, that's Valentina, is a talented nurse in the field of drawing blood. Parker, that's Parker, is not a doctor. He has thyroid cancer, which they only recently finished operating on. John settles in for some scans and blood work and opens up to Cecilia about his career.
I help people overcome inner obstacles, help them make positive changes in their lives.
Like a life coach, yeah?
Something like that.
Early the next morning, John wakes to get some casual labor in before surgery, helping Carlos, that's Carlos, fix his wheel, while Carlos helps John learn a little Spanish.
Jala.
Hala.
John's surgery day dawns. He's under the care of Dr. Ramon Cortez, and things are going pretty swell. A few hours later, and John's recovering. The surgery was a success.
It all looks good, John. It all looks good.
John's cancer is gone. All that's left is to take the post-op cocktail and then...
After that, what happens then?
Your whole life happens then.
My God, John's cured. His son has risen again, with life reborn. There's no need for these petty machines and their lessons to the damned. But before we retire, let's get Gabriella a bottle of tequila for good luck and as a thank you. John does a little triangulation to figure out where the pop-up clinic was located, but upon arrival, things are odd.
Hello?
The house is empty, hastily abandoned. The factory surgery room, too, has been deconstructed, albeit poorly. You know, leaving heavy medical equipment like that just abandoned is incredibly dangerous. People can get hurt. John finds a promotional DVD on a side table. Brain surgery for dummies. Pressing play, he recognizes the view. It's the same angle he saw during his surgery. Well, that's not totally abnormal. I mean, it's probably fine to have reference material available when performing a very tricky surgery like that, but just to be safe, let's check out that wound in the mirror. Oh no, nothing. No surgery, no scars, no hope, no truth. John is dead, and Jigsaw lives once more in his place. Later on, in a quiet sacrificial park, Diego, you remember Diego, is dropping some tourists off at the sacrificial statue. Neat. As they leave, a new client enters.
Buenas noches. ¿A dónde vamos?
Al infierno.
Diego awakens from his ether nap, his torso tied to a pillar. His hands have been duct taped into place with scalpels in his grip, and sewn into his arms are 2 pipe bombs. A silent Jigsaw watches from the window, taking in the scene. Diego slices himself free of the rope, activating the 2 pin power inhibitors on his arms. The timers on his forearms light up, LEDs on the ends of the bombs flashing to demark their active state. A micro cassette recorder drops from the ceiling.
Hello, Diego. Or should I call you Dr. Cortez? I'd like to play a game.
Yeah, that surgeon was no surgeon, and Jigsaw's got a bit of a surgery for him. The pipe bombs are like tumors, I guess, and Diego is to slice through his arms to remove them before the timers run out. Jigsaw's stylish sense of irony is revealed as I present to you arm warmers. With remote activation of the timers, Diego scrambles, but all the exits are locked. Diego understands the assignment and gets to work. Also, this means that we are going back and charging for the notebook because John's back in the saddle. Through sheer determination and force of will, Diego chooses to live. That's rare, and John's proud. John takes time to make a phone call to a mysterious detective. He sounds handsome. And we head off to Club Muertos, where Valentina is pumping a different kind of blood. Gross. Oh, I think I understand what Valentina's line of work is. That's unfortunate. That's a really dangerous career choice. Whoa, brick to the window. Oh man, thank God she said, dang it. We're then taken to a veterinary hospital where Mateo is busy being a doctor, I guess. Oh, hey, it's Gabriella. Oh, he's her drug dealer. I see. Oh, that's weird. I've never known dogs to go quiet that fast, especially in a clinic. Oh well, must be another pig mask taser stick. We then follow Gabriella to a different club's bathroom where she's deciding to be idiota numero uno. Some feet threaten her good time, but they were just ghosts. Kidding, they were pig's feet! Maced! We're now catching up with Cecilia. You remember Cecilia. In her very fancy home, grifting yet another dying cancer patient. Also, spot that blink and you'll miss it George Romero reference above John's photo. Wait, he spent $250,000? Holy shit. Cecilia gets spooked by something and starts patrolling her home and lawn. Looks clear to me. You're just being what was that? What was that? Yeah, maybe we should check the security cameras. Yeah, okay, everything looks normal. Garage, pool, rooftop pig with a brick. Cecilia hops into her car. Smart, but does not check her back seat. Dumb. Oh my God, it's Amanda Young, associate.
This is my associate, Amanda.
Hi.
Yep, Amanda's been collecting. The museum? Why, it's the abandoned chemical factory. While she takes Cecilia's coat, I'm gonna go ahead and say that her sedative came from Mateo's vet clinic, but her plane ticket definitely came from John's pocket. Speaking of, Jigsaw looks pissed. He confronts them one by one about the game they played with his life, his hope, and the lives of so many others. The time has come then for their own reckoning.
We were only trying to help you.
That game is over, and a new game's about to begin.
Valentina, bloodsucker. Mateo, the unknown. Gabriella, sweet Gabriella. Jigsaw reveals the first piece of Valentina's puzzle, a Jigsaw.
The key to your freedom is inside that box.
Do you like history? Because John loves history.
The wire saw inside that box was invented by an Italian physician, Leonardo Gili.
In lieu of a tape, John has Amanda tell Valentina the rules.
The dotted line on your leg marks the spot. Are you fucking crazy?
But Cecilia interrupts and tries to lie her way through this debacle, but no. John and Amanda know too much not to do something.
All of you promised dying people. Dying people! You could save their lives.
The truth is out. 34 victims of their scheme, not including families or loved ones.
This is not retribution.
It's a reawakening. Valentina, follow my instructions if you want to live.
Valentina needs to saw off her leg, then use the suction device, likely the same machine used to draw John's blood, to pull out her bone marrow. If she can trigger the device before time runs out, the saw around her neck won't slice her head off. It's pretty easy.
Now, refusing to play the game is not an option. If you refuse, you'll remain in this room. Forever.
This is not right.
Not right. A lecture in moral decency from you.
John and Amanda ascend the stairs. Cecilia comforts Valentina, who picks up the saw, activating the timer. While Valentina panics, let's break down the trap as best we can. I present to you thigh highs. Never leave home without them. Off the bat, we've got the Geely saw and tourniquet in a very nice wooden box. There's also a much longer length of the blade inserted into the machine around her neck. Geely saws are still used today, often in veterinary hospitals, but given the very nice display box present, I'm gonna argue that this was not taken from Mateo's vet clinic. What was scavenged was the 7A23D electronic suction apparatus. This was undoubtedly the same machine used to take John's blood, now modified for a new purpose. A small light has been installed over the improvised mesh filter. A scavenged scale has been wired into a switch that will, upon connection, disconnect the head remover bit from the timer circuit. Let's see. The suction device is definitely modified with some sort of electronic assistance. Maybe it heats it up so that it can better liquefy what's inside and pull it out. Plus, it's held in a soldering stand, so I think the heating element checks out there. That DVD player is the same one found in the surgery room as well. I'm not sure what's up with that TV or the weird pump apparatus that John was playing with, but maybe they're just hanging out temporarily. All right, V, Valgal, best pal. Let's see how you... Oh my God, she cut off her leg. Whoa, we've got chutzpah. Chutzpah alert. Wah! With that modified suction tube inserted, gross, it's now just a matter of time before she... Ooh. Valentina's timer runs out, and the machine activates the saw around her neck, severing her spine and any other issues she's been having. Remember, kids, when you're in a saw trap with a timer, hesitation is death. The light over Valentina switches off as the machine finishes cycling, the remains of Valentina falling to the floor. Well, thankfully, everyone's accommodating to Valentina's current state. Very accommodating. John decides that Gabriella is next, but Amanda disagrees. A terse discussion about free will and Amanda's ability to carry on John's legacy ends in something of a stalemate, transitioning to a conversation about John's impending expiration date. He believes in her. She just needs to believe in herself. Aw, Dad. Down below, Cecilia's getting a phone call, but her phone is just out of reach. Man, if only she had some rope, huh? Cecilia spies Valentina's vacated corpse and decides to get to work doing things that I will never show on this channel. Let's just call it shoestrings in pasta sauce. Yeah. They use the shoestrings to pull the cart over, grabbing the phone and probably calling the police. I don't know. She might want to have called an electrician though, because Amanda uses a remote to shock the shit out of Cecilia. Damn! Credit where credit is due though. Good use of spaghetti sauce. Unfortunately, an unexpected guest is crashing the dinner party. Parker, you remember Parker, is packing heat and a grudge. He pops off into Valentina's head before getting conked by a pipe. Classic. He wakes to being chained in a chair. I count 3 padlocks among those chains. Nice chucks, by the way. Parker recognizes KRAMER, claiming to have also been scammed.
Yeah.
KRAMER reveals the situation and admits to being a vampire.
You're all con artists. And we were the suckers.
I f***ing knew it! Vampire! What did I say? What did I say? Vindicated? John wants to invite Parker to the game on the winning side, but he has to know if he can trust him.
You killed Valentina.
We don't kill.
This argument again, a vampire? Jigsaw comforts Amanda, promising her that even with this unexpected guest, all is going according to plan. Amanda laments, but changes the plans as well.
But the anesthesiologist is next.
who Amanda promptly tases. And you know, we need to talk about that taser. That's what's called an air taser, and in 2004, they could be purchased for approximately $499.95, not including holsters or lots of reload cartridges. My first thought was, oh cool, Hoffman hooked up Amanda with a taser on her way to Mexico. That's fine. Except that's not fine. Amanda's flying to Mexico with a robe and a pig mask and a taser and God knows what else. 3 years after 9/11? My research suggests there's no way in hell she was getting on that plane after that scan, even if it's in checked luggage. So instead, I'll calculate that purchase as one made on this side of the border. If you or someone you know was working TSA in 2004 and has an official stance on taser protocol, feel free to let me know down below. And while you're down there, check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. You never know what you might miss. With Mateo off screen and being prepped for his game, a new challenger appears. Oh my God, it's Billy on a tricycle! And he's gonna fight Mateo in the chair! Billy wheels himself into the room, presenting Mateo with some of the materials he'll need to complete his task. Mateo tries to avoid playing, but is shocked to discover he doesn't really have a choice here. Mateo's microcassette is actually the same unit Diego had earlier in the film, best identified by the holes near the base where it was previously suspended from the ceiling. Nice continuity.
Hello, Mateo. It's time to play a game. The rules are simple.
Mateo needs to put enough brain matter into that little dish to trigger access to the key that will free him from his chair and cool hat. Failure to do so in time will result in something really neat, I bet. Mateo is very calm about all of this and isn't too terribly bothered.
This is insane. This is insane. KRAMER!
While Mateo comes to terms with what's about to happen to him, let's break down everything we've got. There's a brilliant spotlight on our best boy Billy, so dramatic, as well as a timer linked up to his motorized parts. It seems like this is most similar to the Billy that functioned at the end of Amanda's trap in Saw 1. Very precious. On Billy's trolley table is a menagerie of medical paraphernalia, but I believe all of this can be linked back to what we see in John's surgery room. As previously stated, Mateo's cassette recorder is the same unit Diego was given, so no extra charge there. We've got a motor inside Mateo's chair that propels him forward into position. There's a CRT with a nice view of Mateo's head. Fun fact, the camera overhead is the same one in the surgical room from earlier as well. On the table with the TV is a B&K 445 CRT tester that's been modified. So to my understanding, since the most basic function of a CRT tester is to detect changes in voltage passing through a CRT, what John's done here is set 2 prongs to determine the electrical conductivity of the enzymes in the dish. By adding gray matter to the dish and letting it dissolve, it changes the conductivity of the fluid to the desired level indicated on the tester, thus flipping open that little latch and granting access to the key. Next to the CRT tester is the drill console that controls the little drill on Billy's tray. That control unit is an NSK Primido 2, used to operate a pneumatic drill, and they are normally very expensive, unless you happen to pull one from a room that was recently used for surgery, real or imagined. And yes, that includes the drill head as well. Finally, we need to come back around and talk about Billy. You see, Billy is kind of fragile. He's a precious little boy. I know, crazy, but hear me out. Back when James Wan and Leigh Whannell were still at the helm of Saw, they'd be flying back and forth to different shooting locations. And due to the fragility of Billy, they would actually buy a plane ticket to have him sit next to them on the flight. So with that in mind, we can add Billy's plane ticket to the roster as well. Adorable. With the stage set for Mateo's big game and a curious contraption yet to be discovered on his head, I present to you Hat. The game is on, and all Mateo has to do is drill into his skull, remove some brain matter, and pray. Again, time is of the essence, so don't dilly-dally. He's dilly-dallying, isn't he? Yeah, he dillied and dallied. The scrambled egg in the dish does not process fast enough, and the kill state of Mateo's trap is realized. The sharp-eyed among you might have noticed Mateo's cool hat featuring 2 black boxes on either side of his head. These are switches, each around $25 at the time, and I believe this is what happens. coils rapidly heat, possibly conducting electricity as well. A motor activates to close the death mask on either side of Mateo's head. The same death mask seen when Diego was taken in town. When the mask closes, both switches are activated, bridging the screws and wires strung about Mateo's head, possibly inserted into his head. The entirety of the device shuts, electrocuting and cooking him alive. Mateo dies, smoking. Parker isn't an immediate fan of the KRAMER method.
You guys are fucking sick.
No, he's dying.
I'm dying. I am dying.
See? John and Amanda share a moment of intimacy before beginning the next phase. Release Parker and prepare Gabriella. Gabriella does not like Billy. I cannot begin to imagine why. Pulling the cassette down, Gabriella is introduced to her oh, okay, we'll do it live. Rude.
I'm afraid that's not going to work. You are going to have to play the game.
Two spring lock clamps release Gabriella's chain as a winch high above begins to lift her and pull her taut. As she comes to rest, suspended in midair, the extent of her puzzle is revealed. A tarp is pulled, revealing the X-ray machine, and John explains the rules.
Radiation machines are not to be trifled with. So follow my instructions carefully, Gabriella.
Yet no kidding, John. He's modified the machine with an internal timer linked to an amplifier. An external box represents the current level of radiation emitted. It's very cool. Gabriella needs to assault her hand and leg to free herself. Let's get go-
No. Stop with your foot. It'll swing out of the way.
Thank you, Cecilia. As Gabby settles into her challenge, I am proud to present to you Leather. F***ed up games get f***ed up names. So, Gabster, you've clearly pounded your foot into a pulp and swung out of the way. Take that, Jigsaw man! He accounted for that, yeah, he accounted for that. Okay, yeah. Jigsaw repositions the X-ray machine and continues blasting Gabriella until finally, with a sickening crunch, she melts her hand with a hammer and falls to the floor. Congrats, I guess. But what's this? Parker's grabbed the gun! I thought guns were against the rules!
I stated to you very clearly that guns were against the rules.
Fuck your rules, John.
Oh, damn.
The keys to Cecilia's chains.
You don't need the keys. She's not going anywhere.
Parker disagrees and robs them of their keys, escorting them down to the cutting room floor. Man, Cecilia looks like she's ready to eat them alive. Oh my God, they're lovers. Ugh, gross. Parker threatens Amanda and John into unlocking Cecilia and taking her place.
New game. It's called We Live, You Die, You.
Wow, cool, fun game. Was that published by Ubisoft or Activision? John argues for Gabriella's survival since, she won her game, but Cecilia offers her the boot instead. This is a f***ed up fashion show after all. Then again, if any of you have seen the series Chernobyl, that might have been for the best. Parker has Amanda lock herself in where Mateo stood, and the two watch Cecilia gloat for a bit.
How did I stop you? Am I just that good?
Don't flatter yourself. I just had a lapse in judgment. That's all.
And now the great John KRAMER is going to die in one of his own traps. There's some wicked irony.
But what's this? Yet another unexpected guest to the party? Oh my God, it's little Carlos, practicing his football.
Look who I found.
Oh, that's actually f***ed up. Cecilia and Parker strap Carlos to the trap, then goad John into telling him the rules. Oh, that's a kid. John would never do that to a kid.
Come on, John. Do the scary voice. I'd like to play a game.
Oh, that is not the worst impression, but also I'm impressed she knows enough to do an impression. John is pained and gives Carlos one simple rule.
No hala. Comprende? No hala.
The trap is activated. Below, a winch pulls their chains taut, dragging them flat to the bed of the machine. The platform lifts and lights turn on. Above them, two vessels are suspended over their heads, descending into place. Pistons control valves and release their contents. Blood.
Not waterboarding, huh? Bloodboarding.
As John pulls his lever to take the full brunt of the flow, I present to you ironing board. You gotta make it fit the theme, right? And Carlos from the left side pulling a holla. No, Carlos, no holla!
No holla, Carlos! No holla!
While these two fight over who gets their daily dose of iron, let's break down what's actually been purchased here. So, surprisingly, most of what's present is built into the factory. Weird as it may seem, I talked to some experts in the manufacture of chemicals, and while not common, this isn't necessarily uncommon either. What is uncommon is the contents being blood. First, the amount of blood. Now, this surprised me. I slowed the film down frame by frame, then measured the dimension of each valve over their head, and following the flow of the blood, calculated a rough estimate of how much blood was flowing out of the valve every second. Next, I multiplied that by the maximum duration of the trap, approximately 2 minutes and 9 seconds. 2 minutes and 9 seconds of blood flow for both valves equals a whopping 6.936 gallons of blood. Now, at first that felt low, but the math was accurate. I triple checked and I called someone, and they're good at math. They told me. So I did some more research. Your average human American shower uses 2.1 gallons per minute. I'm not sure what your average human Mexican shower uses, but we'll go with the figure that I found. If a single shower through a standard shower head uses 2.1 gallons per minute, a 2-minute shower uses 4.2 gallons. 2 shower heads would be 8.4. These two rather thin nozzles spend just under 7 gallons of blood in 2 minutes, or 3.5 gallons per nozzle. That's well within the typical range for flow rates. But that's not all we have to talk about, because blood doesn't flow like water, and that blood isn't flowing like blood, at least not like normal blood. It is flowing like blood that has been anticoagulated, which I've been told flows with a consistency similar to milk. Now, normally, the amount of anticoagulant needed for this much blood, since the only sources I could find sell it in bulk, would cost John around $157.49 unless he could source it from somewhere. Somewhere like Mateo's vet hospital, perhaps? The same place where John could procure that very blood. Now, could he procure 7 gallons of it from a single clinic? Well, no one would give me a straight answer. Possibly, maybe, stop asking, who are you? How did you get this number? But nothing truly affirmative. We can expand our minds a bit and consider perhaps that John also bought some blood and used the prices we ascertained way back in the first foot the bill, but I'm willing to bet there was enough in the clinic to cover the blood needed here. After all, Mateo's vet hospital is on the outskirts of Mexico City, a city that, while yes, does look after domestic city-based animals, could also see clientele coming from the rural farms that surround the city. You'll need a lot of blood on hand, and every clinic is going to have anticoagulants. So, 7 gallons of anticoagulated blood are pouring down John's and Carlos's throats, that's fine, and Cecilia and Parker are headed upstairs to abscond with the money. It's a bit messed up to kill John twice here, Lionsgate, I'm just saying.
But if you were the last player, who was supposed to be on the other side of that plank with you?
There's the money.
Cecilia pulls the bag, activating a pin power inhibitor and a timer. The blood board ceases flow and lowers, and the door slams shut on our would-be con artists. John and Amanda race to activate their modified shackles. That's right, no keys were necessary. John rising once more from the floor, covered in blood like he did so many years, or I guess months ago. The gun has been robbed of its shot. Cecilia and Parker are putting the pieces together. Parker was revealed by Diego, lured there by Cecilia's greed and phone call.
I was able to find the man you asked for.
Uh-huh. Good.
But Parker Sears, you'll have to find another way.
An Uher 4200 report stereo begins to play the final rules of the game.
Cecilia Peterson. Parker Sears.
Sulfur dioxide begins pouring into the office through a modified emergency evacuation ventilation system, possibly relating to the valves John was holding during Valentina's trap.
The two of you have worked together to destroy others. Now you'll work against each other.
A single hatch opens as their skin begins to blister. Cecilia and Parker fight for air, fight each other, but in the end, she does burn him. Parker is stabbed, bleeding, slowly going blind from the toxic fumes filling the room. Cecilia is burned, permanently changed, but alive.
John! John!
John and Amanda escort Carlos out of the factory with a fat payday, leaving behind Billy. What? The timer runs out on Cecilia, and our 3 survivors exit into the dawn of a new day. The movie ends, fading to white. But what's this? That familiar bathroom. John KRAMER, Henry Kessler. You remember Henry?
Thank you, Detective, for locating my fellow cancer patient.
Oh my God, it's Detective Mark Hoffman! Detective! And there's only one name for this trap.
Epic bad luck.
I want to play a game.
The movie ends, spiraling towards Henry's tummy, making me very dizzy. So, how did John fare? Did his pursuit of alternative medicine and fresh fashion drive his accountant to flee the country? Or did this trip down memory lane play the exchange rates just right to avoid a nasty bill? Let's find out. In total, John spent approximately $3,852.16. That is, to date, the least amount of money spent on a Jigsaw game by John. Adjusting for inflation, that's approximately $6,419.51 in 2024. That's like 21 swords. I'm not saying we should, but we could be 21 people with swords. It's legal in Texas, look it up. Calculating the same cost in pesos for 2004 nets us approximately 49,934 pesos and 82 centavos. In 2024, that's roughly 120,617 pesos and 58 centavos. I have no idea what you can buy with that much money in Mexico. The only things I ever bought in Mexico were pirated movies and sugar skulls. I guess you could buy 3,072 sugar skulls? Yeah, let's do that. John's cheapest trap was epic bad luck, relying on good old hacked together rusty engineering. Remember to get your tetanus shot, Henry. You're gonna need it. John's most expensive trap was Mateo's hat, primarily due to everything needing to roll itself into the room. It's not a Billy trap without a flair for the dramatic. Taking a look at the charts, Saw X is a blip on the financial record. Go figure the cheapest round of traps would have the highest critic score of the franchise, but here we are. Franchise running totals are tickling the underside of $1 million pre-inflation. And post-inflation, we're looking at $1.5 million spent on metal, timers, cassettes, and billies. Jigsaw's personal expenses are approaching $550,000 spent, while his inflation total has now passed $900,000. That's an insane amount of money for a retired civil engineer and architect with a few patents, but hey, that's your bank account when you don't have kids. To put that into perspective, we can pull up a chart of how much all of John's apprentices have spent versus the Jigsawman himself. I can no longer see the pixels that are Gordon's contributions to this Carnival of Rust. Now, one could argue that I have to charge for the $250,000 given to Carlos since it was part of the trap, but I will not. First, John gave up that money willingly for snake oil. That was someone else's trap. Second, the money went to Carlos, a non-player. So unless Carlos grows up to be a Jigsaw disciple and spends his money on a morally righteous theme park of punishment, it stays off the bill. All in all, this movie is more than affordable for someone like John. Clearly, he threw down $250,000 without even thinking of calling his ex-wife. Imagine that. You think Jigsaw has a Saw trust tucked away somewhere in all that paperwork he gave Jill and Gordon? I really hope he does. For fun, I figured out how much the money was going to be split between the Fellowship of Douchebags. Hear me out. In this scene with Cecilia and her big bag of cash, we see several stacks with everyone's names on them. The stacks consist of hundreds and fifties. By my estimate, Diego, Mateo, and Valentina get a full share that are equal to one another. And Gabriella gets a share a little less than half the size of one of theirs. And I think Parker also gets a less than half share. My reasoning is that anyone pretending to be medical personnel had to do a bit more acting, whereas everyone else just sort of ferries the target into the trap. So finally, Henry gets a quick dose for setting up the rubes with the con. All of this can shift if Cecilia takes a bigger cut than the rest, but for the sake of math, I'm assuming she takes the same amount as Diego, Mateo, and Valentina. Of course, they all get nothing in reality, so there is that. But what do you think? Do you think he's out of money yet? We've still got Saw 11 to go. Soxy is the name I'm giving it. And you can't stop me. There are still the Saw games to go through as well, so we've got some work ahead of us yet. The Saw franchise can't truly foot the bill until the last movie is filmed. As always, thank you so much for watching. I want to give a huge special shout out to everyone over at Patreon and YouTube as well. Your insight and interest keeps this channel thriving and striving forward into something together that it's just incredible to me. I feel like we've really tapped into an algorithmic unknown together, and that's what makes this community special. I cannot emphasize how much of this is thanks to you, my friends, my beautiful wife for editing these videos, and well, I'm just smitten with the whole thing. It's been an incredible first year. Can you believe it's only been a year? And I can't wait to see where we go next, as long as you're with me. Because remember, I'm here to make stuff if you're here to watch.